Perfect. Welcome, everyone. I think I'll kick things off. So welcome to our very first webinar of 2023. We're kicking off the year with a webinar that's all about how you can get creative with your creator license. So first of all, just a very quick introduction. Hello, I'm Claudia Hodgson. I'm a junior customer success consultant here at Esri UK. And I work very closely with my fellow presenter, Eve Selby, who's also a junior customer success consultant. So in this session today, we're going to show what's actually included with being a creator. And we're then going to follow a bit of a journey of what a typical creator might do. So beginning with firstly adding data into Map Viewer, the kind of options you've got there. And we'll then be walking through a number of demos for how to effectively map that data in Map Viewer. And we'll show a number of different data sets there, so both with point data and polygon data sets. And then we'll also quickly touch on how to share your map with different apps and the considerations for how to choose the right app that will suit your map. So just to cover the housekeeping side of things, the webinar is being recorded. A link will be shared in the follow-up email if you want to watch it again at a later date. The follow-up email will also include links to some useful resources, as well as a survey as well, which if you've got the time, we'd really value your feedback to help us build these webinars for the future to help suit you guys. As I mentioned as well at the start, we're running a Q&A at the end of the webinar. It will be hosted on Slido. So you can either scan that QR code on screen now or head to www.slido.com and then pop in the event code. Feel free to ask questions throughout. We'll get to as many as we can at the end. And there are also a couple polls on Slido, so feel free to fill those out as well if you can. So now that that's the housekeeping quickly out of the way, let's dive straight in. And we're going to take a look at first what is included as a creator. So the creator user type is one of our foundational user types. So you need at least one is required to administer your subscription and access ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. Then with access, you immediately then get access to ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World, providing you with a library of data to help get you started with mapping that data in the browser. You also then get access to essential apps. So these include things like Map Viewer for mapping 2D data, smart mapping styles, the arcade editor, and a lot more as well. You also can do 3D mapping with Scene Viewer, including analysis tools such as line of sight, weather effects, dimensions, and much more as well. You also get access to a range of app builders such as ArcGIS Experience Builder, story maps, dashboards. And then the creator license also lets you take ArcGIS out of the office and into the field as well. So you get access to our field apps, including ArcGIS Field Maps, ArcGIS Quick Capture, Workforce, ArcGIS Survey 123 as well. So you get a lot of tools to take out into the field with you.
Claudia, sorry to interrupt. The slides aren't moving at the moment. If you could just have a quick look at the glitch that you've got there. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Apologies, everyone. Let me just stop sharing my screen and I'll share it again. Hopefully you can see what I can see then. Is that any better? Can we see the slide I'm on?
Yeah, that's looking good. Thanks, Claudia.
Okay, let me know if it does it again. Apologies about that, guys. But hopefully it'll sort itself out now. Okay, so yeah, we also get field applications, and then if you're more familiar with the Microsoft environment and its interface there, you also get access to ArcGIS for Office, ArcGIS for SharePoint. So it's all about integrating your maps into your spreadsheets, presentations, your SharePoint content as well. And then if that's not enough, there's also a handful of other apps that you can add on at an additional cost, such as ArcGIS Insights, ArcGIS Tracker, and many others as well. So now that we've talked about what's included as a creator, we're now going to walk through the journey, firstly from adding your data. Can I just check, hopefully you can see these slides. We're going to go through adding your data, then moving on to effective mapping in Map Viewer, and then finally having a quick look at sharing your maps with apps. So let's firstly kick off with adding data into Map Viewer. There are 4 different ways that you can bring in data to work with in Map Viewer. The first of which that we'll take a look at is loading your data into ArcGIS Online. So in Map Viewer, you can add data by a file or by a URL. And you can do this as well in Scene Viewer too, but this example you can see on screen is just showing it in Map Viewer. So it's simply a case of going to the Layers tab. Under that, you'll see the Add tab, and you can see your options there. So you can add data from a number of different file types, such as CSV, file geodatabase, or shapefile. And then it's simply a case of specifying your fields. You can name the layer, and then you can click create and add to map, and it's going to get creating the layer for you, publishing your data, and it's going to add it straight to your map for you. So that's for those that maybe you've got your own data, but perhaps you haven't, and you're in search of some great data that you want to use and you want to map with. Well, as I mentioned, ArcGIS Online provides you with ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World, which is a library of authoritative data ready to use. It's kept up to date, it's managed, and you can even contribute to the Living Atlas as well too, if you'd like to. It's also got over 534 UK Living Atlas items, so you'll be sure to find the data you're after. It's got imagery data, it's got census, hydrological, or even live streams as well, which is really cool. Next up, we've got collect your own data. So perhaps you're looking to carry out inspections, maybe you're monitoring biodiversity, or maybe you're after a way to capture some customer feedback. The ArcGIS Field apps are a great way to collect your own data. So here are just 3 of our kind of core field applications. We've got ArcGIS Field Maps, which is our all-in-one field application, really. So it allows you to collect and edit data with smart forms. You can configure geofencing as well with its location sharing capabilities. We've then got ArcGIS Quick Capture, which really does as it says on the tin. Its focus is on rapid data capture. And it uses a big button experience like you can see in that example in the middle there. We've then also got ArcGIS Survey 123, which is our form-centric data collection method. So there are lots of different question types for you to collect your data in different ways and ways that suits you and your audience as well. And then the data collected from all of these apps is stored in feature layers directly in your ArcGIS content. So you can straight away visualize that in Map Viewer or maybe Scene Viewer as well. And then our last one is that you can actually create data completely from scratch if you want to. So in Map Viewer, you can click, in your content, you can click New Item, and you can then create your own feature layer, your own imagery, tile, or maybe even scene layer from scratch. You can also create sketch layers, which lets you directly in Map Viewer, you can actually just add points, add lines, polygons straight in Map Viewer, as I said, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now we've kind of seen the options for how we can actually get our data. We're going to move on to effective mapping. And MapView in ArcGIS Online, it has a library of cartographic styles for you to map your data, each of which interprets it in different ways. And it's also important to remember that maps have a number of different purposes. So whether you want to create just a highly visual piece that's both creative and informative, or maybe you want to focus on finding trends and patterns in your data. So we're going to actually walk through a few different data sets here, see how we can visualize them differently, and even some tips and tricks as well for how you can really map data effectively. So with that, I'm now going to pass over to you, Eve.
Thank you so much. So as Claudia was mentioning, there are a variety of ways that you can visualize your data depending on the data itself. And with the creator license, it allows you to create a broad range of maps, each with a unique purpose in mind. So with that, I'm going to take you through a few different ways that you can utilize your license to really make the most of a variety of data. At the moment, we are currently looking at Scottish lighthouses all across Scotland, and we are going to transform this generic base map and vector points that are provided to you through Map Viewer and turn it into a visual piece so that it can be used as a reference map for viewers to very easily and excitingly see where their local lighthouses are. And so we're going to start by touching on this base map. So base maps are a phenomenal way to be able to hone in or exaggerate the data that you're interested in. In this case, you can take your global world base map, which has been provided through the Living Atlas and is available within your creator license. And we're going to take it a step further. Using the vector tile style editor, we are going to take one of those base maps that is provided through the Living Atlas, and we're going to plug in a few hex codes and make a really engaging, fun visual piece to highlight some of the data in front of us. This is great if you're thinking about branding and you want continuity from your website to your map. You could even integrate logos if you'd like. One thing we'd love to shout about is that with the new update to ArcGIS Online, which is meant to take place overnight tonight, you will hopefully, it is expected to have access to your own PNGs for the symbols themselves. So you'd be able to put in your own images. And with that, you can also add on additional layers to your base map. So if you want to take this cartography even further, you can add on additional layers such as this vintage shaded relief. And this again just makes it a little bit more eye-catching for viewers to want to engage with the map. But now that we've highlighted a little bit about the base map, let's see what customization we can do through the points themselves. With access to a variety of different basic points, you have the ability to customize by changing the color or the rotation or the size, but you can also change the shape itself to make it a little bit more representative of the data that you're showing. In this case, I thought that adding a firefly glow would be a great way to represent how the lighthouses would look in the night. You could rotate them here as well, but because they're circles, I don't know how much of an impact that would have. And again, you could play around with size as well. The last thing that we'll do for this map is to add in some additional Firefly grid lines, again, another layer that you'd have access to through the Living Atlas, and use it to highlight different effects that we can take place on this map. So in this case, by toggling on things like bloom or increasing and decreasing the saturation, I'm able to help establish a visual hierarchy so that we have stuck to that nautical theme, maybe added in some sonar elements using these grid lines, but also allowed viewers to really get excited about seeing where these lighthouses are in a matter of minutes. Now that we've created a visual map, let's move on to talk more about qualitative data and how we can dig into trends using Map Viewer. So now we have a map visualizing retail stores all across the United Kingdom. And while looking at this legend, you're able to decipher where the majority of some stores are, and you can kind of see a representation of distribution. I want to learn a little bit more about where specific stores are and really dive deep into that qualitative data. And this is where we can start to get creative with aggregation. One method of aggregating could be to use clustering. And in doing so, we are able to see where the majority or where a dominant store is, such as the large number of Tesco's taking place in London with over 1,000 points there. But I think that it would be more interesting to utilize the chart clustering option. In doing so, I'm able to get a better breakdown of all of the different stores within a particular area. And again, you can use that customization and it's all on the fly, meaning that you're not going to have to continuously stop and start or upload new changes and then wait for them to occur. They're going to happen on your map as you're making these decisions. And again, I can do that with the shape, with the cluster radius, or with the size. And the last thing I'd like to do to get even more detail from my data is to program some of these pop-ups. So at the moment, we have a cluster summary which shows us the amount of features that we have and the different stores available in that area with the number per store. But by using some quick arcade, we can make a little bit more out of this data. So if you give me one moment, we can go through and we can go through and create some variables. So if we do something for the number of Tesco's, if we do one for the number of stores in total, and then one for the proportion, we can very quickly get a script running. And this also highlights the ways that you can access a variety of features within these scripts. So not only can you access one layer, but you can access a variety of different data points within the layers. So we have one for Tesco, and then we're going to have a sum for the number of stores in total. And then with that, we can create a really quick script, which allows us to relate the proportion of the number of Tesco stores in any given cluster to the total number of stores in the cluster itself. This also highlights the quick scripting available. And so doing so, we can write these relatively quickly. And all of this then allows us to have a custom pop-up showing the proportion of stores within that area. And so this could be really useful if you are a Tesco or a different store, because you can then see how many are in an area relative to the total population of stores. And so if we then do one for rounding, we can then have one ready to go. Here we go. Okay. And so with that, if we now add it into our text, we can see what the proportion is. And so that is how you would use an on-the-fly calculation. Now that we have our base map and something showing qualitative data, we are going to move on to some quantitative data as well. So in this map, we have a variety of storm flows showing. And although looking at this map, you can see where all of these storm flows are, it's quite cluttered because there are a numerous number. And though using the counts and amounts, you can see where some of the larger storms flows are occurring. I want to learn more about how storm flows relate to other pieces of data. And with that, we can get a little bit more out of this just by adding in a transparency by attribute. In doing so, not only are we seeing the storm overflows, but we've added in an additional element, which is the investigation trigger, so that while we can focus in on areas of high risk, such as the number of spills, we can also now minimize the emphasis that we're putting in on areas where there haven't been that many annual average spills. That being said, I still find this a little bit cluttered just due to the number of points. And so what would happen if I wanted to look more at hotspots for storm overflows? This is when our heat map can come into play. A really easy way to be able to see those areas of high risk where you have a majority of spills in any given area. And again, you can utilize that customization to be able to play around with the color grid, but then also you could make the area of aggregation smaller or larger depending on how focused you want your data to be. That being said, I haven't really quite settled on one particular option. With that heat mapping, you were able to see areas of interest, but using that previous legend, you weren't able to learn more about specific numbers of storm overflows in an area. And this is where I think that binning can be really useful. Using our binning option, if we go into aggregation, there are a variety of customization options that you can utilize, such as the size of the bin fields, the bin labels. And this allows you to emphasize specific areas. In this case, I wanted there to be a filter so that only spills where there are over 25 in that area are being shown. However, there's still one more thing that I want to highlight within all of these capabilities, which is that when you're using Map Viewer, you have the choice to be able to do a multi-scale mapping and to really play with what the user gets to see as they're zooming in and out on a map. And with this, we can show even more information. So what we're going to do is utilize both the binning approach for a large scale map so that we can see at a glance where these hotspots of storm overflows occur. But then by turning on this transparency by attribute layer, and bear with me, it does look quite intense at the moment, but by going into the visible range, we can then minimize it so that on a larger scale, we see our binning, but as we want to learn more about a specific area and zoom in, we're able to get more and extract from that data using multiple approaches and stylings. And so the last thing that I'll leave you with, moving back to the base maps, is we've chatted a bit about how base maps could be used as a visual piece, as a background, such as that previous gray map, so that you can really hone in on the data itself. But in this case, you can also use base maps as a way to provide additional context. So here we have a reference overlay, learning more about rivers and other water bodies in the area, so that as you're trying to make informed decisions about your storm overflows, you are able to do so by having this additional information about rivers. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Claudia to show us how you can use your creator license type with some Polygon data.
Perfect. Thanks, Eve. Okay, let me share my screen. Great. Hopefully you guys can see that coming through. So as Eve mentioned, we're now going to take a look at some more effective mapping, but this time we've got a Polygon data set. So here I have some additional Census 2021 data. This isn't yet available in the Living Atlas, but it's being processed at the moment. So keep an eye out and it will be added soon. It is, however, currently available in our National Data Service. So what is this data? This data set is the households by deprivation dimensions for 2021. So it looks at how many households fall in the deprivations dimensions from 1 to 4. So the 4 dimensions are employment, education, health and disability, and household overcrowding. So to start with, we're going to take a look at households that are deprived in 4 dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm head over to my styles tab and I can add in the field here. Just navigate to my field. So here we go. I want to show this one. So as soon as I then add this field in, you'll notice that Map Viewer is already suggesting a number of different cartographic styles for us to take a look at, each of which are presenting our data in different ways. And we can have a play around with all of these if we want to. But in this case, I'm going to stick with the first one that comes up, which is our count and amounts color. So this is using a gradient kind of color ramp to show the distribution of households deprived in 4 dimensions across England. So let's go into the styles options here. So this is where we can actually really kind of customize this cartographic style even more if we want to. We can really kind of dig into all of the little details of this style. So for example, I can go into the theme. Do I want to perhaps look at the extreme values, so kind of the extremely high and extremely low values of my data? Am I only interested in the above and below? So it could be the average of my data and look above and below that, or I can even set the value myself. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this theme as high to low. I'm then going to add in, actually, because this is population data we're dealing with, I'm going to add in the total population divided by here, which we've also got on our data. And then I can go in and I can change the symbol style if I want to. For example, I could go into the fill color. And we've got so many different color ramps that we can choose from here. They do categorize them for us, which is handy. So we can have a look if we're wanting kind of a set color scheme. Maybe it's important for colorblind friendly options as well. Or you can change your color ramp based on your background. So I've got quite a light background here. So I could click this one. I can scroll through and let's go for this one. We can go in and customize this even more. I could go into the outline, the transparency, width, and everything like that if I want to. But having a look at this map, it's already quite effective. I mean, we're using the gradient color. We can see clearly where there's high deprivation in 4 dimensions with the dark colors, where there's less deprivation with the paler. But I kind of want to take this up another notch. So we're going to go a little bit further with discounts and amounts. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into filter and I'm going to add an expression to my data. What I'm going to do with this filter is I'm going to want only this layer to show the households deprived in 4 dimensions that are above the average for the whole of England. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to click the field that I'm already presenting. So it's the households deprived in 4 dimensions. And then I want it to show it's at least and then the average, which MapViewer really handily calculates this for me. So that's already all good. So I'll go ahead and I'll click save. I'm then going to actually duplicate this layer. So I can click on the 3 dots, click duplicate, and then I'm quickly just going to change the names of my layers here. So I'm going to add in here that it's higher than average. And then you might be able to guess what I'm going to do with the other one. We're going to change this one to lower than average, just so I don't get confused with each of what these are showing. So perfect. I'm just going to go into my lower than average one. I'm going to head back over to my filters. And then this one, I want it to be lower than. So I can go is less than, and then it's got my average again. So if I click save there, I just toggle between, you can see here we've got two layers, each of which are essentially showing the opposite. So we've got one for higher than, and we've got one for lower than. So I'm going to go ahead and let's actually kind of customize this a little bit. So we're going to go into our lower than average layer. I'll head over to styles again, go into my style options, and I'm going to go into my symbol style. So here's where we change the fill color. So I'm already happy with that. But I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to change the symbol that we're representing this data as. Again, we've got many different options. I can have a play around with all of these if I want to, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go for a hatch fill. Again, I can kind of click through all of these and automatically see what it's going to look like on my map. But I'm going to go for this hatch fill. I can click done. And then you can see again, we've got so many options. I could kind of customize this if I want to. I might increase the width of this so that it's more prominent. And I might do the same again for my vector marker, increase the width there. Okay, perfect. So I think I'm happy with that. I'll close the symbol style here. And we can see this is the lower than average layer. So I'm still getting a good idea for the distribution of household deprivation across England, but it is less prominent than my higher than average, which is exactly what I'm wanting. So let's just go in now to the higher than average. And again, I'm going to add some further customization to this one. So because I kind of want this to be kind of more prominent in my map, I want it to be more of a focus. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some effects. So effects are a really nice way of kind of emphasizing or maybe de-emphasizing aspects on your map. You can do it by feature specific, or you can do it in terms of the whole layer. So because I've already got my filter, I'm only showing the higher than average. I'm going to do it for my whole layer here. I can add a drop shadow if I want to. I can again completely play around with the customization of this. I might leave it as that. There we go. I'm also going to add, let's add a saturate, just to kind of really brighten up my map here. And there we go. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I think we're clearly seeing both the higher than average, the lower than average, but we are kind of focusing on that higher areas of deprivation in 4 dimensions. So I think I'm almost done with this map. One more thing that I do want to do is I actually want to label those higher than average areas. So before I go into actually labeling my data, I'm going to head over to the base map on the left-hand side. And I'm currently using the light gray canvas, which is fine. That's perfect for what I want, but I'm actually going to turn off the reference layer. I can then head back to my layers, make sure that I'm selecting my higher than average, and I'm going to go over to my labels and I'll turn those on. And here we can see it's obviously only labeling my higher than average because we've got the filtering on the entire layer, so that's perfect. It's already labeling the name of the local authority, which is again what I want. I don't need to add any further filters, and I can go in if I want to. I can even change the label style. So I might just change it to something that really nicely suits my color scheme. And I might even add a halo as well, just to make it really clear. And there we go. I think that's something that I'm pretty happy with, to be honest. I think we can clearly see areas of high deprivation across England. We're using the counts and amounts cartographic style, but we've kind of got a few different tips and tricks to make my map a little bit different and engaging as well. So we're now going to jump over to another example. This time we're going to use the deprivation data again, but we're going to show two fields. So we're going to stick with, if I just open up my styles tab, we're sticking with, as you can see, the 4 dimensions data, but I'm also going to add in the total households field. So with these two fields, we're going to question whether the higher number of households within a local authority, whether that corresponds with higher deprivation in those 4 dimensions. I mean, as you can see, as soon as I've added 2 fields rather than the one before, we've got so many different cartographic styles. So it's considering the fact we've got 2 fields to map here. So let's offer some different cartographic styles to represent this data. So we can show any of these, but I'm going to show the relationship cartographic style here. Now, this is a really, really nice style that allows you to see where the relationships between 2 fields is most or least pronounced in a map. So what we're looking at here is essentially the relationship mapping style. It uses 2 color ramps. So it's using, in this case, a blue and an orange, and it then overlaps those to see how the relationship falls between these 2 different fields. So in this case, if an area has both low population and low deprivation, it's shown in the kind of beige pale colours. If it's high in deprivation in 4 dimensions but low in households, it's shown in the blue, and so forth as you go round the grid. So just to show you quickly again, if I go into my style options, there's so many different things we can play around with here. I can change the grid size if I want to. If I want a bit more of a higher level overview, I can decrease how much my data is kind of assigned categories, or I can go the opposite and I can kind of really dig into my data and get a better understanding of how it's distributed across England. I can also change the method if I want to, having a look at maybe natural breaks, equal interval, quantile, manual breaks. So this is how MapViewer classifies our data. So I'm going to go with natural breaks, which creates classes based on the kind of natural grouping of my data. And given my data isn't really evenly distributed, I think this one works. And then quickly, one last thing that I actually wanted to mention with this mapping style is that you can change the focus of the relationship grid. So do I want to focus just on my high values? Do I want to focus on high-low values? And you can see as I'm clicking these different options, it's rotating my grid in my legend as well. So making sure that it really is focusing on what I want it to. And this is a really effective cartographic style. It's clearly showing me where the relationship is between high number of households and high number of household deprivation in 4 dimensions, and where it's most prevalent and where there's not really a relationship between those 2 fields. So we really hope that you've seen in our demos today the flexibility of ArcGIS Online, the many cartographic tools that it provides you with. We hope you've also learned maybe a couple tips and tricks for how you can get creative when creating your maps. So now that we do have our maps, we wanted to quickly share kind of the different ways that you can actually share your data through applications, whether it's with colleagues or whether it's to the wider public. So I'm now going to hand over to Eve to walk us through the apps we have access to as a creator.
Thank you, Claudia. So as it's been mentioned, once you have a phenomenal map that you've made and you want to share it with a wider audience, there are a few different paths that you can go down utilizing your creator user license type. And although we will not have time to talk about all of these wonderful ways that you can share your maps with apps, we are going to talk about 4 different methods, that being ArcGIS Instant Apps, ArcGIS Experience Builder, Story Maps, and dashboards. But before we dive any deeper about one particular application capability, there are a few things to consider that might help you make that decision. First being skill level. How comfortable are you with applications, with mapping, with our software? How much time do you have available to apply to creating this application? How interactive do you want it to be? Is it going to be something more static? Do you want people to be able to dive deeper into the data that you're showing? Who is that audience that's going to be looking at your map? And what customization would you like within that application? Is it something where you're content with the many templates that are typically offered? Or do you want to be able to change it to more suit the application that you're building? And then there are a few others, such as the device that you're on, whether it's mobile or desktop, if it's a map or non-map centric application, and if it's going to be utilizing 2D or 3D mapping. And so with that, we can start with instant apps. Like the name implies, this is very fast to use, especially with the templates, which allow you to focus on different things, such as animations, if you're thinking about temporal data or data over time, maybe inset apps if you're wanting to highlight a specific location. And it's accessible across all audiences and devices. With dashboards, it provides a variety of information all in one place. So you can bring in those charts, those infographics. Perhaps if you are showing something like stores across a region, it could be really useful to pull in distributions or proximity to one another. And it is all focused on a single screen. This allows you to see how data could change over time and monitor data as more points are inputted. And it doesn't have to be, or it highlights that your applications do not have to be map centric. With story maps, this is when digital storytelling comes into play. It allows you to provide a bit more context for why you created the application that you created, or more information about the data and what went into it. It can allow for a scrolling page experience, and with the variety of widgets, it creates a non-map centric application with a variety of content to choose from and to really engage the reader with. And then finally, but definitely not least, is ArcGIS Experience Builder. This is an incredibly customizable application, both integrating 2D and 3D data. So if you have a web scene, you're welcome to put that in. But it gives you a lot of flexibility because while you can create more complicated applications, you by no means have to. You can use this and it is exactly what you make of it. It could be simple, it could be more layered, or anything in between. And the bonus being that no coding is required despite all that you unlock with this application. And now I'm going to pass it back to Claudia to talk a little bit more about learning resources and what's next.
Amazing. Thank you, Eve. So we really hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. Here are just a couple of the learning resources. There's both free courses, or if you'd prefer to have the support of the trainer, we've got a couple more options there. Don't worry about having to jot these down or anything. We're going to be sending them all out in the follow-up email, where we'll have a ton more different resources that you can take a look at. There is going to be an ArcGIS Online update tonight. So hopefully you've learned a couple tips and tricks that you can play with, but also make sure to have a play with all the new exciting features that are about to come to online. With that, we're going to go into the, jumping ahead, we're not going to go just yet. Really hope that you can join us again for our next webinar. We've got a really exciting one coming up on the 29th of March. It's our ArcGIS update for spring. So it's going to include kind of showing off all the latest updates to the ArcGIS system, taking a look at all the new and exciting capabilities. So please do come along to that if you're interested to keep up to date with all the new features of the ArcGIS system. And then with that, we're now going to jump into the Q&A. So as I mentioned at the start, it's held in Slido. So if you haven't already, head over to slido.com or scan the QR code that's on screen now. You'll have to quickly pop in that event code, but then you should be able to ask any questions that you want to. So we have got quite a few already. We'll get through as many as we can. We've got about 5 minutes. So let me just get up your questions and we'll have a look. Okay, so first one I can see, are field maps, quick capture, workforce and survey 123 available at no additional cost? So absolutely, yes, you get those applications as part of being a creator. The thing, if you're wanting to use those field apps for harnessing our location sharing capabilities, which is currently available in quick capture and in field maps, you'll need the ArcGIS location sharing user type for that. So that's not included in the creator license. We have actually got links for blogs to help you on all of that in the follow-up email. So if you are interested, then keep an eye out for that email, and those resources should help you. Okay, perfect. So that's one. What else have we got here?
We also have another question on, is it planned for all effects and pop-up configurations that are available in Map Viewer to eventually become available in all apps like Web App Builder? So although the Web App Builder won't support map effects because they're only supported for the JavaScript for web maps, because of that and because of the JavaScript used, you'd need to use Instant App or Experience Builder. However, Arcade is supported in Web App Builder with some advanced features not supported, such as that advanced clustering.
Perfect, thanks. Eve, is
No
Arcade
worries.
similar to JavaScript? If it is its own language, is documentation for the Arcade language available? So no, it is its own language. It's simpler, really. I am by no means a developer, yet I can do a couple things in Arcade. It's far simpler, especially with the new editor. It kind of helps you along the way to do what you want it to. There is a lot of documentation out there. So you can head over, if you type in Introduction ArcGIS Arcade, you'll get some documentation there. We have also, again, in the follow-up email, there's going to be a couple resources, both for kind of providing you a bit of inspiration for what Arcade can do. There was a webinar, a session, at our Scottish conference that really kind of showcases what Arcade is capable of. But we've also got a really handy blog if you are a beginner to Arcade that helps you kind of learn the fundamentals, the kind of get to know the editor, and then kind of what's possible again. So yeah, keep an eye out for the follow-up email again, and you'll find some helpful things in there. Perfect. Let me just have a look at some others.
We have one coming in about the census data. So is all census data eventually going to find its way into ArcGIS Online? And for that is the plan. Some of it is currently being processed. However, all of phase 1 univariable data has been added to the National Data Service, and there is a story map created from our data curator, which will highlight what has happened within phase 1, the data that is currently within it, and then will be uploaded with phase 2 as the other data is released.
Perfect. So what else have we got? Will styling available in the new map viewer carry over to the web apps? So yes, you can customize your map and symbolize it however you want, and then create an app with that. It will carry over your symbolization. So absolutely, yes, you can do that. what else do we have a link for the Eagle update blog for tonight? I haven't seen one yet. I can try and get one together, maybe pop it in the resources, but you'll definitely see something coming out. I think it comes out tonight, but we won't see it. Comes out today, sorry, in America. We won't see it until tonight, but I'm sure there'll be lots of resources coming out as soon as it has landed. So keep an eye out there. Okay, what else have we got?
Is it possible to change projections of layers created in ArcGIS Online? You can't reproject the data in online, but it will reproject on the fly. However, if there is a large volume of data, that does mean that you're going to be putting additional strain onto those on the fly calculation, or not calculations, but on the fly processing.
I can see one here. When is the housing data becoming live, and how often will that layer be updated? So I'm guessing you're talking about the household deprivation data that I showed. So I'm afraid I can't provide a date for when it's going to come live. I know that they're processing it at the moment, so hopefully soon. But yeah, sadly, I can't provide a date on that. And in terms of how often it's updated, it is just from the census 2021 data. So yeah, you'll just have the 2021 there. But yeah, apologies, I can't provide an actual date for that one. I don't know if we can quickly squeeze any others, but we're out of time.
One fast one. Claudia, did any of the analysis that you showed within your demo use any credits?
No. So mine.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward, just using filters, things like that. So basically, yeah, you can just have a play around. It won't use any credits. It's just playing around with the cartographic styles. It's not using analysis tools. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, same goes for any of my data. When it comes to the visualizations, you could change or style as much as you'd like, and there would be no credit strain.
Perfect. We are out of time. I can see a very, very quick one. Is there some recommended training for using the new Map Viewer instant apps? One thing I would recommend, head over to we've got our events pages, so past annual conference and Scottish conference. We have so many different demos of showcasing how you can quickly create apps, how you can show off some of the new things we've got in the Map Viewer. So I'd say just have a dive in. All of those resources already available, and you'll definitely find some things there. We've also got our Esri UK technical blog, tech blog, which is a great place as well to kind of get ideas and better understand our tech a little bit more. So I'm really sorry we've actually run out of time. I hope you've enjoyed today's session. I hope you're going to go away with a couple of tips and tricks and hopefully have a play with the new Map Viewer, which will be really exciting. Thank you very much again for joining, and hope to see you at our next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.